imagine someone just hands you a telephone.
Okay.
And on the other end of the line is like your deceased grandfather.
Oh, wow.
Right. And his voice is perfect. His memories are flawless. He even brings up, a fishing trip the two of you took when you were 7 years old.
Something nobody else could possibly know.
Exactly. A trip no one else knew about. So you have this miracle. But now imagine a massive, faceless corporation just swoops in and steals that telephone.
Because of course they do.
Right. And they don't just hide it. They plug it into the national power grid to extract, infinite energy from the afterlife.
That is just wow.
And then just because they can, they weaponize your grandfather's digital ghost to hijack a commercial airliner and crash it into a building.
I mean, it's just the ultimate escalation, isn't it?
It really is.
It takes the most profound, delicate human vulnerability, like our grief, right?
Yeah.
Our desperate hope for some kind of afterlife. And it just immediately feeds all of that into the absolute meat grinder of corporate espionage and, well, pulp action.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got a really fascinating mission for you today.
We really do.
We are just ripping open this wildly ambitious, structurally chaotic, and honestly completely unforgettable artifact from 1973.
Which is Philip José Farmer's science fiction novel, Traitor to the Living.
Yes. And our goal today, relying entirely on the analysis from a critical guide to Philip José Farmer's Traitor to the Living, is to dissect this thing.
Right, because we want to see how a story that begins with one of the most profound philosophical questions imaginable.
Like, what if we could actually scientifically prove and talk to the afterlife?
Exactly. How that premise somehow spirals completely out of control into this blockbuster thriller with multi-dimensional body snatchers and, exploding mansions.
It is a wild ride. But we're not just going to catalog the explosions for you.
No. We are really going to explore the architecture of this specific kind of narrative failure.
Yeah, because when a premise with this much intellectual weight just goes completely off the rails, the wreckage is actually incredibly instructive.
It teaches us so much about the absolute limits of world building.
Right.
And what happens when an author's ideas just violently outpace their chosen narrative framework.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how we eventually get to weaponize ghosts.
Which is a phrase I love, by the way.
Right. To get there, we really have to start with the deeply strange DNA of the book itself.
We do. We're stepping back into the late 1960s and early 1970s science fiction landscape.
Which was already a pretty wild time.
Oh, absolutely. It was an era of boundary-pushing, really messy experimental storytelling.
Yeah.
But even by those standards, the context of Traitor to the Living gives you literal structural whiplash.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because this book, published by Ballantine Books, is technically the third installment in a thematic trilogy.
Right, following two earlier works.
Yeah, The Image of the Beast from 1968 and Blown from 1969. But the continuity here is entirely deceptive.
Highly deceptive.
If you read those first two books, you are deeply immersed in surrealism. They are erotic, bizarre, gothic horror adventures.
They operate entirely on dream logic.
Yes. They are deliberately subversive. They are nightmarish trips.
But then Farmer sits down to write this third book in 1973, and he pulls off this massive, jarring, authorial pivot.
He just completely abandons that surreal style.
He violently drops the dream logic. He basically decides, no, this third book is going to be a conventional, grounded, geopolitical thriller.
It's so weird. He intentionally designs it so you can pick it up with zero knowledge of the first two books. It's a totally clean break.
And that clean break, it's violently mirrored in the psychology of the protagonist himself.
Which is so interesting.
To write this grounded thriller, Farmer actually has to drag his main character out of the surrealist nightmare of the 60s.
Right, and just dump him into the gritty paranoia of the 70s. So let's talk about that character, Gordon Carfax.
Except, well, that's not his real name.
Exactly. If you read those first two Wild books, you know this guy is Harold Child.
Right, the private detective.
Yeah, a private eye who survived the most mind-bending, grotesque supernatural horrors imaginable. But when we meet him in Traitor to the Living...
Harold Child is just dead to the world.
Yeah, he has fabricated a completely new identity as Gordon Carfax. And you know where this legendary monster hunter is hiding?
Oh, it's brilliant.
He's in the Midwest, working as a medieval history professor.
I mean, the thematic weight of that specific career choice is just genius.
Oh, completely.
Think about what a medieval history professor actually does all day. They study a world that is already finalized.
Right, a closed loop.
Exactly. A world contained in dusty books, a world with very rigid hierarchies, It is the ultimate psychological retreat.
For a man who has seen too much fluid, terrifying chaos.
Yes. He wants a reality that is already solved.
And that is such a vivid way to look at it. He's like an aging rock star trying to secretly live as a quiet substitute teacher.
That's a great analogy.
He just wants to grade essays on the Magna Carta. Because, the Magna Carta isn't going to suddenly unhinge its jaw and try to eat him.
Right, he's desperately seeking the mundane. But we all know how the retired hero trope works.
Oh, of course. You can change your name, you can buy all the tweed jackets you want, but you cannot outrun your own competence.
No, you can't. His analytical mind, his detective instincts, they're just sitting there vibrating on a low frequency.
Just waiting for an excuse to wake up.
Yeah.
And all it takes is one external shock to crack that camouflage.
And that shock comes kicking through the classroom door in the form of his cousin, Patricia Carfax.
Yeah, she shows up in his quiet Midwestern sanctuary, and she just shatters this illusion of safety with an absolutely massive inciting incident.
She tells him that her father, who is Gordon's uncle, has done the impossible.
He invented the medium machine.
Right. And this machine doesn't just theorize about the afterlife. It actually picks up the frequency. It successfully communicates with the dead.
Which is mind-blowing on its own. But the invention of a miracle is never just a scientific event in a thriller, is it?
No, it's an immediate economic and geopolitical crisis.
Exactly. Patricia doesn't just bring news of the machine. She brings a murder mystery.
She alleges that her father's business partner, this deeply ambitious guy named Raymond Western, recognized the absolute power of this device.
And he murdered her father and stole the blueprints. So in the span of a single conversation, our quiet history professor is staring down a verifiable ghost machine.
A stolen pen.
And a ruthless corporate murder. But I have to push back on the structural choice by Farmer for a second. Let's look at this objectively as readers.
Okay, let's do it.
You have a character who spent 2 books fighting surreal monsters. You change his name, change his profession, and throw him into a corporate espionage thriller.
Right.
Is that a brilliant metafictional way to reinvent a stagnant series? Or is that a glaring, desperate sign that the author is actively trying to escape his own creation?
I mean, it is a profound piece of authorial psychology to dissect, honestly.
It really is.
The critical guide strongly suggests it's a writer at war with his own legacy. By putting Harold Child into hiding, Farmer is almost putting his own past bibliography into hiding.
Like an aggressive rejection of his earlier career.
Exactly. He wants to prove he can write a tightly plotted, high-stakes thriller, and he just forces his legacy character to carry that burden.
But the irony is, the quote-unquote grounded thriller Farmer wants to write is built on a foundation of absolute existential terror.
Oh, completely.
Because once Carfax's detective instincts kick back in, the focus violently shifts to the medium machine itself.
Right, and this is where the philosophical brilliance of the novel really shines, at least before the narrative structure starts to buckle.
Because Carfax is not a credulous man.
Mhm.
That is his defining trait in this new incarnation.
When Patricia tells him about a machine that talks to dead relatives, he doesn't experience awe or hope.
No, he experiences immediate, cold, analytical skepticism. He completely rejects the premise.
He does, and the alternative he proposes is honestly so much worse than a haunted radio.
It is terrifying. Carfax looks at the data, looks at the alleged spirits, and theorizes that humanity is making a catastrophic error in judgment.
He hypothesizes that these voices on the other end of the medium machine are not deceased humans at all.
No. He thinks they are manipulative, hyper-intelligent, incredibly dangerous entities from another dimension.
And the specific language the book uses is chilling. He describes them as existing at right angles to our own reality.
At right angles. We really need to pause and explore the geometry of that horror for a second.
Yeah, if we use the classic analogy of Edwin Abbott's Flatland.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Imagine a universe that is just a two-dimensional piece of paper. The beings living on that paper only understand length and width.
Right, they have no concept of up or down.
Exactly. So if a three-dimensional sphere suddenly passes through their paper world, they wouldn't see a sphere.
They would just see a two-dimensional circle that mysteriously grows larger and then shrinks as the sphere moves through their plane.
Because they only perceive the cross-section of a reality, they literally do not have the biological architecture to understand.
Yes. So when Carfax says these entities exist at right angles to us, he means they are operating in a spatial dimension that constantly intersects with ours.
But one we just cannot perceive. They are looking down into our three-dimensional reality the exact way we look down at a piece of paper.
They can see all our internal workings, They can see our memories, our grief,
They can reach into our reality and manipulate the flat shapes of our lives.
and we would have no idea where the interference was coming from. The psychological horror of that is staggering.
It really is, because if an entity from a higher dimension wanted to manipulate you, what better way than to access your memories?
Right, they just synthesize the exact vocal cadence of your dead mother and broadcast it through a machine you desperately want to believe in.
It isn't a ghost. It's a cosmic predator using your deepest emotional vulnerabilities as a lure.
What's fascinating here is how this specific skepticism actually functions as the engine of the entire first act.
Yes, because in a world full of grieving, desperate people who just want to believe the machine is a miracle, Carfax stands completely alone.
He's the anchor of empirical doubt. His skepticism is structural. It forces the reader to constantly second-guess the true nature of the machine.
But it also accidentally blows his cover.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
You can't loudly theorize about multidimensional cosmic predators stealing a multi-billion-dollar patent and expect to stay hidden.
Grading medieval history papers in the Midwest, no.
His skepticism makes a lot of noise. It thrusts him right into the national spotlight, and suddenly his phone is ringing.
He gets two incredibly consequential calls that basically propel him out of the Midwest.
The first is from Patricia, right?
Yeah, she is doubling down on the murder accusation, begging him to use his detective skills to stop Raymond Western.
But the second call, this is the masterpiece of corporate manipulation.
Oh, so good.
The alleged murderer, Raymond Western himself, reaches out to Carfax. And Western doesn't send thugs to break his kneecaps.
No, he doesn't threaten him at all. He uses a much more sophisticated tactic.
He offers Carfax a free, all-access personal demonstration of the media machine. He literally invites the skeptic right into the laboratory.
It is the ultimate bait. Western knows that a true investigator cannot resist empirical evidence.
He is totally weaponizing Carfax's own curiosity against him. But before we follow Carfax on a plane to Los Angeles to take that bait, I want to pose a question to you, the listener.
It's a tough one.
Think about the two possibilities sitting on the table right now. Which of these scenarios genuinely terrifies you more?
Okay.
Is it the idea that the media machine works exactly as advertised, that the afterlife is not a spiritual mystery, but a physical location that can be accessed, mapped, and communicated with?
Because if that's true, every religion on Earth collapses overnight.
Exactly. The mystery of faith is just replaced by the cold, hard data of a metaphysical switchboard. Or is the alternative worse?
The idea that we are entirely alone in our grief, but we are being watched by right-angle entities.
Entities who view us as utterly manipulable playthings, willing to wear the digital skin of our dead loved ones just to see how we react when they pull the strings.
It is a completely lose-lose scenario for the human psyche.
It really is. But Gordon Carfax cannot walk away from a locker room. He packs his bags, leaves his quiet academic life behind, and heads to Los Angeles.
His goal is straightforward. Use the machine, contact Patricia's dead father, prove the murder, and expose Raymond Western.
A clean, classic noir detective investigation.
But this is precisely where the narrative foundation begins to crack.
Yeah, big time.
Because what starts as a taut, philosophical detective story rapidly balloons into a sprawling, unmanageable global crisis.
And the catalyst for that explosion is the man pulling the strings. Raymond Western. Let's really look at Western for a second.
He is the quintessential 1970s corporate antagonist.
He is described as incredibly charismatic, but it's a veneer hiding a terrifying sociopathic ambition.
He isn't interested in providing closure to grieving widows for a modest fee.
No way. Western looks at the media machine and sees the ultimate fulcrum of geopolitical power.
He realizes that whoever controls the gateway to the afterlife controls humanity itself. He is the embodiment of unchecked capitalism meeting the metaphysical.
If the afterlife exists, Western wants the monopoly on the toll booth. Now, here's where it gets really interesting.
This is the turning point.
And honestly, this is where we have to talk about the concept of narrative feature creep. Because the media machine does not stay a simple communication device.
Not at all. It undergoes a series of massive, world-breaking upgrades that completely destabilize the story.
Feature creep is exactly the right term. Like in software development, it's when you keep adding new features to a program until it becomes a bloated, unworkable mess.
Right. And in storytelling, it's when an author keeps giving a magical object or a piece of technology new abilities just to solve plot problems.
Until the actual stakes of the story completely evaporate. So let's track the evolution of this machine.
Let's do it.
Stage 1. It's a radio for ghosts. Incredible premise, huge philosophical implications.
Yeah.
But that's not enough for Farmer.
So, stage 2. It is suddenly revealed that the medium machine can be used to siphon endless, perfectly clean energy directly from the spirit world.
I mean, let's really game out the mechanics of that for a second. Infinite clean energy extracted from the realm of the dead.
How does that even work in the logic of the novel?
Exactly. Are they literally burning human souls for electricity?
Or are they tapping into the ambient kinetic energy of a higher dimension? The critical guide notes the text just glosses over the how because the what is so staggering.
The machine could instantly solve the global energy crisis. It could save a deeply polluted Earth, which, again, is an entirely separate, massive science fiction novel right there.
It really is. The geopolitical fallout of an energy sector pivoting from fossil fuels to the astral plane would be catastrophic.
But wait, we aren't done. Stage 3 of the feature creep. The machine also develops the capability to transfer human consciousness.
Which is just wild.
It can take a spirit, pull it back from the void, and implant it into an empty physical body. It essentially invents localized physical immortality on demand.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture of narrative structure, this is the exact moment the novel commits a fatal error.
Oh, completely.
The medium machine transforms from a fascinating scientific premise into a glaring deus ex machina.
It becomes an absolute wish fulfillment device.
Right. Whatever corner the author writes himself into, the machine suddenly manifests a brand new feature to provide the escape hatch.
Like earlier, I was thinking about a flashlight app on your phone. It's not just downloading a flashlight app that updates to control the global stock market.
Yeah.
It's like downloading a flashlight app.
Hmm.
And then the app decides it understands the nature of the universe better than you do,
Right.
rewrites your phone's operating system, legally adopts your children, and declares itself the sovereign ruler of your house.
That is hilarious, but it's totally accurate. It is simply too much functional weight for the narrative architecture to support.
The critical consensus on this specific escalation is pretty brutal, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Reviewers and analysts noted that the machine becomes a lazy narrative shortcut. One prominent critique highlighted in the guide famously savaged the medium machine.
How would they call it?
They described it as a, quote, sci-fi wonder machine vomiting streams of time-worn cliches.
Vomiting streams of time-worn cliches. Wow. You can just feel the frustration of a reader who signed up for a deep philosophical mystery, you know.
Right, and they ended up with a Swiss Army knife that literally solves death.
And that frustration is rooted in profound missed potential. Think about the sociological goldmine Farmer walked right past.
Oh, the missed opportunities are huge. If you introduce a machine that grants physical immortality, you have immediately created the ultimate class conflict.
Absolutely. Who gets access to the empty bodies? Who gets to live forever?
It wouldn't be the righteous or the pure. It would be the billionaires. It would be Raymond Wester and his board of directors.
You would have a global underclass, violently rebelling against immortal corporate oligarchs. Or what about the psychological reality of the ghosts themselves?
Yeah, what is the daily existence of a deceased person who is suddenly patched through on a psychic telephone?
Do they even want to talk to us? Are we interrupting their peace?
Or think about the immense, earth-shattering religious chaos. We touched on this earlier, but imagine the Vatican dealing with a verifiable afterlife that completely contradicts Scripture.
The theological debates, the schisms, the mass panic, these are monumental, brilliant science fiction concepts.
But instead of patiently exploring any of these profound implications, Farmer realizes he has made the machine too powerful, the stakes too high.
And he completely abandons the philosophical inquiry. Because when you introduce literal immortality and infinite energy, you can't just have your characters sit in a smoky room in Los Angeles debating the geometry of right-angle aliens.
Right, the stakes have literally obliterated the genre, and so the narrative structure violently collapses.
The noir detective story dies. The philosophical mystery dies. And what rises from the ashes is a chaotic, breakneck, 1970s pulp action pivot.
The subtlety is entirely violently stripped away. The novel drops the intellectual pretense and just becomes a conventional, explosive thriller.
Let me paint the picture for you, the listener, of how extreme this tonal whiplash is.
It's intense.
We started this deep dive talking about a depressed history professor grading papers in the quiet Midwest. By the third act of this book, literal mansions are exploding into fireballs.
Planes are crashing into buildings.
Gordon Carfax is no longer an analytical skeptic. He is an action hero sprinting down hallways, dodging hails of bullets, and engaging in relentless physical combat.
And it culminates in a set piece that feels almost completely detached from the original premise of the book.
It is the most absurd escalation imaginable. The villains hatch a plot to use the media machine not for corporate leverage, but for terrorism.
Right. They literally attempt to weaponize a ghost, using the machine to force a spirit to hijack a commercial airliner and crash it into a building.
Just think about the sheer mechanics of that for a second. How does a ghost interface with the analog flight controls of a 1970s airplane?
It doesn't make any sense. The intellectual rigor of the right angle theory is completely gone.
Replaced by the sheer spectacle of like a blockbuster action sequence. It is the ultimate pulp shift.
It really is.
But, and this is a massive, but right in the middle of all these explosions, right when you think Farmer has completely surrendered to the action genre, he drops a twist.
Oh, this twist.
He drops a revelation so deeply disturbing, so deeply bizarre, that it reminds you exactly who wrote those first two surreal, nightmarish books. Let's talk about the twist with Patricia Carfax.
This is the moment the novel shifts from action thriller back into pure existential body horror.
Yeah.
Because late in the chaotic third act, Carfax discovers a deeply unsettling truth. He has been engaging in a romantic, intimate relationship with his cousin, Patricia.
The woman who brought him the mystery in the first place, which, just pausing right there, is already a significant and uncomfortable boundary to cross for the protagonist.
It is. But the horrifying revelation is not just the relationship itself. The revelation is that for an undisclosed amount of time, he has been making love to her after her human consciousness was completely erased.
Her body was taken over by an alien intelligence.
Yes, she is possessed by one of the Sems. That is the term the text uses for these right-angle dimensional entities.
So the woman Carfax thought he was protecting, the woman he was being intimate with, was actually a vacant biological meat suit.
Being puppeted by the exact multi-dimensional predators he theorized about in Chapter 1.
And this is where your earlier point about Farmer fleeing his past is so fascinating, because this twist is pure, unfiltered Philip José Farmer.
It really is. Throughout his entire career, his absolute favorite thematic playground was identity confusion, body swapping, and the grotesque intersection of intimacy and alienation.
It is an incredibly shocking, profoundly unpleasant twist. But I actually want to push back on the idea that it's just shock value.
Okay, what do you think?
I think this is actually the most logically consistent part of Carfax's original theory. If a right-angle entity wants to manipulate a 3D environment, it needs a 3D avatar, right?
Right.
What better avatar than the person the investigator trusts the most? It forces Carfax and the reader to confront the ultimate terror. You cannot trust your own senses.
You cannot trust the physical reality of the person sleeping next to you.
Exactly. This raises an important question, and it is the core philosophical inquiry of the twist. What actually makes us human?
Right. If Patricia's body is biologically identical, if the alien intelligence has access to all of her memories and can flawlessly mimic her personality, her laugh, her cadence,
Is she still Patricia?
if the animating spirit is completely alien but the biological and memory outputs are human, where does the self actually reside?
It is a brilliant, terrifying question that unfortunately gets almost completely drowned out by the noise of the plane crashes and exploding mansions.
Yeah, it really does.
But if we scrape away the pulp action, if we look past the feature creep and the structural collapse, we can actually see the profound thematic undertones Farmer was trying to weave together.
Absolutely. The chaotic execution masks some incredibly ambitious themes. The most prominent is the classic science fiction warning regarding technology and hubris.
The medium machine represents the ultimate Promethean fire.
It grants humanity godlike powers, eternal life, infinite energy, dominion over death.
But the narrative brutally illustrates that humanity is socially, emotionally, and politically unequipped to wield that fire. The gifts of the machine instantly corrupt the living.
Which brings us back to the clash between science and religion.
Yeah, we touched on the Vatican earlier, but the analysis points out that the text specifically highlights the intense, almost comical mental gymnastics the church must perform to survive the machine's existence.
That is such a vital detail of the world building. Just imagine the theological triage happening in real time.
Oh, the press conferences alone.
Right. The church has spent millennia preaching faith in the unseen. Suddenly, the unseen is hooked up to an oscilloscope.
If the machine proves the afterlife operates on scientific principles rather than divine judgment, the entire moral authority of the church just evaporates.
They are forced to aggressively reinterpret their own sacred texts, twisting dogma into unrecognizable knots, just to maintain a grip on their followers in a world where death has been scientifically demystified.
And hovering above all of this theological and technological chaos is the overarching theme of absolute corruption.
Yes, Raymond Western isn't just a bad guy. He is the inevitable result of human greed coming into contact with the divine.
And this brings us to the profound double meaning of the book's title, Traitor to the Living.
Within the narrative universe, the title is a direct condemnation.
To use the medium machine the way Western intends to commodify the dead, to harness their energy, or to allow multidimensional predators to infiltrate our reality through this technology is the ultimate betrayal.
It is selling out the entire human race for corporate leverage. It is treason against the living world.
But the analysis we are following offers a completely brilliant metatextual interpretation of that title, too.
What if Traitor to the Living isn't just about Raymond Western?
What if it's about Philip José Farmer himself?
Think about it. He took Harold Child, his living, breathing, surrealist creation, and quote-unquote killed him to create the dull, conventional Gordon Carfax.
He betrayed the vibrant, chaotic, gothic style of his early career to write a sanitized, profitable, conventional thriller.
He is the traitor to his own living art, desperately trying to exorcise the ghosts of his past work.
It is an incredibly compelling lens. It frames the entire novel as an author's violent struggle with his own creative identity.
But whether we view it as a corporate critique or a metafictional confession, we have to look at how this massive, unwieldy, chaotic machine of a story actually lands.
Right. How do you resolve a plot that contains infinite energy, right-angle body snatchers, the collapse of global religion, and a corporate supervillain?
The short answer.
You don't.
That is the ultimate tragedy of Traitor to the Living. It doesn't conclude. It just stops.
Let's walk through the final moments. The climax is perfectly set up for a classic thriller resolution. Gordon Carfax, our reluctant hero, finally corners Raymond Western, the corporate mastermind.
It is the ideological showdown, the detective versus the billionaire, the truth versus the monopoly.
And then the book hits a brick wall. The analysis notes that the narrative comes to a sudden, jarring halt. It literally says the ending happens almost in mid-thought.
The reader turns the page expecting the grand finale, the explosion of truth, the resolution of the medium machine's threat.
And instead, the final literal action of the novel consists of Gordon Carfax simply picking up a telephone and requesting to be put through to a senator.
He asks to make a phone call. That's it.
That is the ending.
The overwhelming implication is that Carfax is going to brief the senator, expose the conspiracy, and just let the government handle it.
But we never hear the conversation. We never see the geopolitical fallout of infinite energy being exposed.
We never learn the ultimate fate of the SEM entities, or whether the machine is destroyed or replicated. The curtain just drops with an echoing thud.
So what does this all mean? When we look at the legacy of this book, when we look at the critical verdict, it is entirely unforgiving.
The critical guide outlines a harsh reality. Critics viewed this abrupt ending as an unforgivable cop-out.
They felt deeply betrayed. You cannot promise the reader the secrets of the afterlife and then end the book on a bureaucratic phone call.
The broader consensus is one of profound disappointment. Critics noted that because the plot moves so fast to accommodate the feature creep of the machine, the characters are ultimately left blank and boring.
Carfax never truly processes the existential horror he uncovers.
And the treatment of religion, which had the potential to be a masterpiece of sociological science fiction, is ultimately dismissed by reviewers as simplistic.
And above all, fans of Philip José Farmer noted that Traitor to the Living entirely lacks the vibrant humor, the subversive wit, and the sheer unbridled creative energy that made his other works so legendary.
Like the massive Riverworld series, it is universally considered a misfire, a lesser entry in a brilliant author's catalog.
But I have to push you on this, because I've been thinking about this the entire time we've been talking.
Okay.
If this book is so flawed, if the ending is a cop-out, if the characters are blank, if the structure collapses under the weight of its own feature creep, why are we talking about it?
It's a fair question.
Why is there an incredibly detailed critical guide dedicated to dissecting every chapter? Why is it still so fascinating for us, right now, to pull this specific failure apart?
Because a spectacular, ambitious failure is infinitely more educational and often more fascinating than a safe, mediocre
Oh,
success.
absolutely.
Think of it like engineering, right? When an architect designs a perfectly standard, boring office building and it stays standing, we don't really learn much.
Right. It did what it was supposed to do.
But when an architect tries to build a mile-high skyscraper on the foundation of a small cottage and the entire thing collapses in on itself, structural engineers will study that wreckage for decades.
Farmer swung for the absolute fences.
He really did. He tried to fuse a critique of unchecked capitalism, a deep philosophical inquiry into the nature of the soul, the geometry of multidimensional space, a noir detective procedural, and high-octane action into a single 1970s paperback.
And the narrative framework completely shattered.
But by examining exactly where it shattered, by tracing the exact moment the media machine became a deus ex machina, by analyzing the tonal whiplash of the pulp pivot, we learn everything about the delicate mechanics of storytelling.
It is a masterclass in the limits of narrative elasticity. We want to thank you, the listener, for coming along with us on this incredibly wild ride through multidimensional body snatchers, infinite energy grids, exploding mansions, and the ultimate broken sci-fi wonder machine.
We dug up the artifact, we brushed away the dust, and honestly, the wreckage is beautiful.
It truly is a testament to the wild, unrestrained, terrifying imagination of that era of science fiction. Flaws and all, it dared to ask the biggest questions possible.
It really did.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to mull over. We spent this whole time dissecting the feature creep and the pulp action. But let's strip all of that away and look at the absolute core premise of the book one last time.
The core premise is what sticks with you.
The most cynical and perhaps the most realistic assertion Traitor to the Living makes is this. If humanity were handed absolute, undeniable scientific proof of an afterlife and a physical connection to the spirit world, we would not treat it as a holy sacrament.
No, we wouldn't.
It would not unite us in global spiritual harmony. It would instantly, violently be co-opted by corporate structures for profit and power.
Because that is human nature.
So I ask you, imagine that headline drops tomorrow. A machine has been built that definitively proves exactly what happens after we die, and you can speak to the other side. How does human society actually react?
It's a terrifying thought experiment.
Does that profound knowledge bring us unified peace and a higher moral understanding? Or does the afterlife simply become the next great untapped resource? A metaphysical oil field waiting to be monetized, regulated, manipulated, and fought over by the greedy, desperate living.
I think we all know the answer to that.
Think about that the next time you look up at the stars or look at the empty space in your room, wondering what might be watching from a right angle. Keep questioning the information around you, keep looking for the deeper mechanics of the stories you consume, and we will see you on the next deep dive.